That dream was so real. So real that it made you return to make sure that person hadn't left. Hiroshi looked at his love, whispered but did not go to hug her like the old days. The words filled with pain ended with a sigh and drifted into silence. Kaoru hugged the cold grave like the way Hyen had hugged her on his last day, left the two souls behind her. When did you escape? I don't belong to this world, so those things can't control me for too long. Even if you escape, there's nothing you can do. The dark creature sneered and drew his sword threateningly. In this place, your duty is to stand and watch. Don't meddle in other people's affairs. Are you sure? Despite the sharp tip of the sword nearby, Hiroshi still maintained his natural smile and brought a bright red flower close to the blade. If you still want to exist in this world, don't force me to turn off her consciousness. The blade slowly left the fox's body. The dark creature silently probed, carefully observing every smallest gesture of its opponent. He still hadn't forgotten the unexpected failure of the previous night. When Kaoru was near the gates of hell, the flower knocked the rat demon unconscious, and caused him to temporarily disappear from the world. The rat was unaware of the argument between the shadow creature and Hiroshi. She still sat beside the cold grave, ignored the flickering light of the item buried deep underground. Behind her, the red silk net divided the space into two places. One side imprisoned her and the tomb, the other side imprisoned the fox and her guardian soul. The white mist and cold wind passed through the red silk net, gathering into Hyen when he was still alive. Feeling the presence of her soulmate, Kaoru slowly stood up and walked towards the deceased. Hyen smiled, allowed Kaoru to try to grasp a part of the past. The hands of two people from two different worlds cross each other. And Kaoru helplessly lowered her hands, tried to smile even though his eyelids were wet with tears. We have met. I miss you so much. Hyen opened his mouth and reached out towards the rat. It's not often that we have peace. Come here to me. The warm, familiar voice and the joy of reunion made the rat forget her original purpose. She hurriedly ran to him, hugged her only friend in this world, and fell into his resting place. Hyen still stood still, smiled at his friend gently, but that smile brought tears to her eyes. Their distance was so close but also so far. Her small ability only helps her see and talk to Hyen, unable to touch him like their past. Tears urged Hyen to step forward. The foreign boy's hands were clenched tightly, his slender eyebrows furrowed, forcing the wrinkles in the middle of his forehead to become even more obvious. As soon as Hyen moved a little further, the red threads around his body tightened. The familiar smile disappeared, and Hyen's eyes also became lifeless. Kaoru got up after the fall and walked towards her foreign friend. Hyen shook his head slightly and slowly retreated. The threads controlled by invisible magic forced Hyen to shorten the distance. Blood shot out from Hyen's body and passed through the rat's body. The hand controlled by the silk slowly raised up, pointing towards Kaoru with difficulty. Hyen tried to lower his hand. The silk threads cut deeper and then tugged at the same time. The arm that lost its freedom pointed straight at his friend. Hyen's mouth moved slightly as if he wanted to say something. As the distance between them shortened a bit, countless wire ropes rushed out from nothing, pushing the rat towards the cold grave. Kaoru, Hyen softly called the rat's name with difficulty and then remained silent, continuing to control the strands of light. A bright red tear flowed down when Hyen saw that Kaoru's body was covered in red silk. The foreign friend slowly approached and spoke softly. I really want to take you with me. This world has no place for us. I don't want to leave you alone to fight those people. Kaoru, run. Don't believe in him. The shadow creature's reminder collided with the silk net, turned into a strong wind rushing straight at the shadow creature. The resilient person almost collapsed if he had the fox's hands to help him. Loud laughter echoed in all directions. Hiroshi and his rival carefully observed their surroundings. Right before their eyes, a part of the night gradually opened, revealing a pair of bright and sharp red eyes. Shin, traitor. The call came from the dark night like a threat that made the dark creatures wary. Hiroshi looked at the trembling hand holding the sword tightly, frowning slightly. Anxiety and doubt were quickly replaced. Before he could tell the truth, the fox was pushed away by his rival. Tufts of red silk immediately tied the fox to a corner. Darkness quickly covered the outsiders. The vision was only a small gap, enough to see Shin's back and part of the mysterious red eyes. Even if you brought her here to sacrifice, your outcome would still not change. Shut up. Shin pulled out his sword and slashed at those eyes. Blood oozed from the wound, flowing down and blending into the darkness. Half of the face slid to the side, then moved back to its correct position, and healed as if nothing had happened. Shin became even angrier and vented more anger on that object. And Kaoru's scream ended it all. The rat looked at the bloody cracks on his best friend's face and burst into tears. Hyan still smiled, raised his hand tightly held by the rope towards Kaoru, and said softly, "Come with me. I don't have much time left." Kaoru shook her head slightly. Desperation was clear in her eyes as she saw the image of her best friend gradually fade away, while the wounds kept increasing, intertwining and piling up like a multi-layered net with ugly distorted meshes. "Come with me." The hand pointing towards Kaoru still waited patiently, ignored the blood still oozing out from the places where the rope was tight. The wire wrapped around Kaoru's body suddenly loosened. The rat looked down at her feet and then suddenly looked towards Hyan. The first time she smelled the blood of a soul, that's when she realized more blood was flowing out of Hyan's body. Hyan still looked at his friend with lifeless eyes. His lips moved, softly pleaded, "Kaoru. Run." Immediately, the threads simultaneously tied Kaoru and Hyan tightly. Red eyes looked straight at Shin, warning, "His death is also your end. That boy never wanted to work for you guys. And so do I." Shin grasped the sword tightly, angrily protesting with consecutive sword strikes. "You were the ones who captured it as bait to lure Kaoru. Quickly release the kids. If not, don't blame me." Loud, hoarse laughter echoed from all around. The mysterious person left his hiding place, revealing his true form as a dragon. Bright red eyes stared at the traitor, challenging, "Do as you like. The more you cut, the louder that girl cries." The sword in his hand fell to the ground. Shin ran close to the wire net, but before he could speak, he was strangled by the wire. The mysterious person looked at Shin and affirmed, "Traitors must die." The red eyes slowly closed. Hyan waved his hand, and the ropes fell on the place where Kaoru was sitting. Not having time to avoid it, the rat had scratches all over its body, its clothes were torn and soaked in blood. As soon as the rat stood up, a wire hidden on the ground appeared to block her leg, causing her to fall. Countless wire ropes rushed forward, tied her body tightly and simultaneously tightened. Screams of pain tore through the air and then fell into silence. Hyan still stood still in the same place, watching his only close friend in the world get up in pain and then fall again, without a word of greeting, without crying. "Kaoru." Shin ran closer to the blood web and shouted loudly, "Don't move. All around you are traps." The rat suddenly stopped. It seemed she sensed something unusual hidden in the darkness. Hyan turned his head, looked at the traitor, raised his hand full of wire to Shin, and ordered, "Shut up." The thin, sharp wires rushed into Shin's body and knocked down a patch of darkness as Shin luckily avoided it. A dark, turbulent space with terrifying screams gradually appeared. From the center of the vortex, a figure faintly appeared. Shin frowned slightly and was startled, horrified when he realized that the person approaching was another Hyan. "My body is coming soon. After this tomb collapsed, the darkness carried me." Hyan retrieved the weapon hidden under the rubble and spoke softly, "It's time to end." The wires attacked Kaoru together. The rat didn't run away anymore. She stood still, let the wire stab her body, then used all her strength to hold on to that deadly weapon. Blood oozed from Hyan's hand, slid along the rope, touched Kaoru's hand and then caught fire. "Stop scaring me. I know you don't want to fight. Stop it." Kaoru shouted loudly, ignoring the wall of fire created by blood surrounding her. Hyan remained silent, closing his eyes. A tear of blood flowed down and turned into fire. When the lifeless eyes opened, a strong pull tore all the lines in Kaoru's hand. The wire turned into a dagger, and Hyan rushed into the wall of fire. Strange light flared up and then went out. Shin and Hiroshi were both surprised to see Kaoru and Hyan nodding their heads together. Between them was a black notebook pierced by a dagger. Drops of black blood fell from the notebook onto Hyan's body. The ghostly magic net gradually melted. The last bit of freedom was just enough for Hyan to call Kaoru's name again and then slowly disappeared. All the pain pent up in the crystal mouse's heart broke into a cry. Hyan raised his hand to wipe your tears, forced a smile to comfort him. Don't cry. I am free now. We will meet in another space, in another form later. Kaoru shook her head slightly, tears flowing down, diluting the black drops of blood on her face into dark red drops, along with the unscheduled raindrops that fell to the ground. Hyan extended his hand towards Kaoru. His hand touched that tear, and he smiled contentedly. I have longed for this day. I crave death, crave freedom from the vicious cycle of sin. For hundreds of years, I have constantly changed my identity, from farmer, doctor, slaves to students. I live only to find someone who has the ability to use dark powers. I just have to live, make friends, build trust and then arrange my own death to evoke hatred from the person who loves me the most. But they are not strong enough, and I have to continue the drama of life until the day I meet you. I really want to take you with me, but not to be close to the dark magic, but to run far away with me, to live a different life together. I love being with you, seeing you laugh, doing crazy things with you like when we weren't separated. Quote. Hyan held Kaoru's hand for a long time and then fell into an eternal sleep. His body dissolved into light dust particles, gently flying into the dusty sky. Before completely blending into the night, the foreigner left his message that only Kaoru could hear. I gave you immortality as a clumsy apology. Forgive me, Kaoru. Kaoru remained silent, started blankly, then screamed when she saw her deceased friend blending into the dark night. The desperate scream that lasted for a few seconds was replaced by silence. The dark creature disappeared with the grave. Next to Kaoru, there was only a deep, dark hole with interlaced cracks like a spider web. Hyan is gone and leaves her immortality. Kaoru looked at the ball of light sinking into her body, laughing at herself. Without Hyan, what's the point of being an immortal? This punishment is too cruel but also very worthy.